and welcome to Bulls and Red, your RB Leipzig podcast from Leipzig to everyone who's ever listening to us all over the place. That is so great. Your hosts are Richard and Mario, and I would like to welcome our co-host, Richard, the brain of the podcast. Richard, how the devil are you tonight?
Thank you. Well, a little bit still...
Sore.
Still like...
Sore.
Still
Hurting.
Yeah, whatsoever. Yes, it hurts a little bit Friday night, but still recovering, but starting to look forward for the upcoming match on Saturday.
Well, we're in the middle of the week, so it has taken a long time to recover from this. You know, it was really interesting when they did the interview with Seiwald after the match, and he said, well, yeah, we lost today, it's Friday, then we got 2 days off, 1 day for just recovering on Tuesday, we're back in training. And everyone's like, guys, your display was so bad. Shouldn't you tell the coach, okay, I'm eager to go, let's restart on Sunday? Probably never happened, but you know, they're professionals. They try this every day. So what's installed for us tonight? Well, first of all, I have a confession to make because we started recording this podcast on a Wednesday night. And today is Thursday night. And Thursday night, I'm sitting here by myself. And I'm trying to put together a little news round for you. And I must admit, things have started to move on the transfer market, which might make changes to the other parts of the podcast that we're talking about. So tonight, let's start with a roundup of news as things are progressing on Thursday night. And it's very likely that by the time this podcast is released, things will have changed again. Nevertheless, we're going to follow this up by looking at key takeaways of the Bayern Munich match, you know, the great performance of the current champions. And that is followed by a preview of our first match at home versus Heidenheim. So, what has been happening so far?
Was ist los?
Well, it's that time of the year when we're all looking at planes, at movements of people, and it's all about transfers. Definitely all about transfers. Players that RB Leipzig needs to get rid of. In some of the media, some people talked about end of summer sale because RB Leipzig obviously has to get rid of a lot of people. However, the biggest news is, of course, the movement of Xavi, and we come to that a little bit later. It seemed like there was no movement for a long time, and now things have happened and there's a knock-on effect. But I'd like to start with a different player. Elmas, our number 6, former number 6. I don't even know if he's currently a number 6. Well, he joined us from Napoli in January 2024, and remember that was the time when Emil Forsberg had just left for Red Bull New York. And I think we forked out about 23 million euros. And for some reason, he never really got into the squad, into regular time on the pitch. And the only time he was, I think, in the starting 11, one of the few times at least, was versus Darmstadt 98. And I remember that day well because he started and he played for 45 minutes. He was taken off the pitch. And everybody thought, well, he wasn't so bad. He created some chance. He has some questions and give him another 45 minutes, Marco Rose, because we think he's going to be a pretty good player. But apparently he wasn't unfit. He was unwell on that day, so he had to be subbed out. So he came from Neapel and he's returning to SSC Neapel. Not sure how much money we're getting for him. He was, of course, not playing very often in the his first season. So then in January last year, or January 2025, which is this year, he was loaned out to Torino FC. And remember, or a lot of people remember that Marco Rose actually said, well, he wasn't really fit to be in the Bundesliga squad. And that was really interesting because that was a time when RB Leipzig had a lot of injured players and the squad was the roster was very, very limited, not many players. So a lot of people kind of wondered what happened there and maybe thought that him and Elmas didn't get on. Not sure what happened there. bottom line is he never really played. He was loaned out to Torino FC. He played for 5 games and scored 4 times. Or was it the 4th games and scored 3 times? So all of a sudden it seemed he was fit enough for the Italian league, the Serie A. And he stuck with the club of Torino until the end of the season. He got about 1,000 minutes, playing minutes at the time on the pitch. And compare that to 300 and something minutes on the pitch for RB Leipzig. So when he returned, first time I noticed him was during our test versus Atalanta Bergamo. And we talked about this in our episode when we reviewed that match versus that test versus Atalanta Bergamo. And I just realized I think it was now German version. And in that time, he was part of the team in the second half, and he was our only striker at that time as well. But he never felt like really part of the team. And even after the match, when team of the second half, they were just exercising and running down the field after the match, he didn't join them. He chose a different path around the field, meeting the Atalanta Bergamo team a couple of times. So you could clearly tell he didn't want to be part of the squad of RB Leipzig, of the story. And I'm so pleased now that he's found his old new home in Napoli. And I did remember when he joined RB Leipzig, we kind of wondered, why is he really here? Is he really going to be that fit? Because there were a lot of times when he was on the bench and he was injured. And we all knew he wouldn't help us straight away. Didn't suspect, though, that he wouldn't help us at all. And at times we felt maybe it's being treated a little bit unfairly as well by the coach. But then again, what do we know? We don't see him every day. Now, I'm pleased for him that he goes back to the club that he clearly likes. I think he always wanted to go back to SSC Napoli if possible. And we wish him all the best. So, in my eyes, a pretty good conclusion there. And a player we have been able to move on. And of course, that brings us to the biggest story of the day and the season and the longest saga and the biggest misunderstanding of the last season.
Mit der Nummer 20, Schaf!
By the way, that's the old announcement, and I chose that because in his first season, when he was loaned from PSG, Xavi was great. Xavi was a player who made the difference. Xavi was a player who was fighting all the time. He was loyal to the club. And yes, of course, he needed a lot of social media marketing, a lot of exposure, but that was fine to us because he was such a great asset during the time. But the difference to the season after was that he had a different set of players around him. For example, he was able to play with Dani Olmo for a while. And I think, and that Richard's going to mention that later on this podcast as well, he's not a player who makes other players look good. He needs players who understand his genius, who understand his style of play, who switched on as him, as he thinks. And a lot of times is. And if that works, he's really going to put the time and effort. He's really going to put in the right attitude. And is the Xavi Simons that we actually loved during that time? And cast yourselves your minds back a year ago. Gosh, were we excited when he decided to rejoin RB Leipzig on a loan, admittedly. To be honest, when he was bought in the middle of the season last year, that was sort of like an anticlimax. I wasn't really so excited about it because by that time the season was very difficult already. I think he had been injured for quite a while as well, alongside other key players, and the team never really was able to grow together, and we all had an inkling how bad the season could be. On the other hand, at that time, I remember I was still very confident that we would bounce back and get into the top 4 because that was the unwritten law. We would always be able to do that. Turned out to be not the case. So, Xavi Simons, for a while ago, took out or removed out of his Instagram bio anything relating to RB Leipzig. very truly and clearly indicating that he did not want to be part of this RB Leipzig squad in the future. But early on this summer, it seemed like there were talks and agreements between Chelsea FC and Xavi Simons. So it looked like everything was moving along, but we were always aware of the fact that Chelsea FC had to get rid of some players. So we're looking at a whole ripple effect, domino effect, knock-on effect that had to happen. And today, on Thursday, the first stone kind of moved with Christoph Nkunku not coming back to us, which I'm fine with. Also not joining Bayern Munich, which I'm actually relieved. No, he's going to AC Milan, and well done for him, and we wish him all the best, and hopefully he can return to the form that he displayed over here in Leipzig, and that could pave the way for Xavi Simons joining Chelsea. However, there's a new kid on the block with come on you Spurs. Wow, I am really, really impressed, and I have to say with Thomas Frank? I think it's Thomas Frank. Thomas Frank's side looked really exciting in the first few matches in the Premier League. And I must admit, this is probably, from my point of view, the more exciting project than the one with Chelsea. And their gaffer, I think he would one day be a great part of, institutions like Match of the Day on the BBC. He would be a great pundit to have on board, but right now he's got a different job to do, and we wish him all the best. So I could actually see Xavi there, and it was portrayed in the media today, reported today, that Tottenham Hotspur actually put in a bid. This is absolutely wonderful, and that was very close to the asking price, apparently. Now, at this moment in time, we haven't heard of any movements by Chelsea, if they responded to that. And I'm kind of getting Benjamin Šeško vibes. Maybe we're getting a little bit of a bidding war between two Premier League clubs, and they got deep pockets, so let them pay. And I'm kind of also have Šeško vibes, because I was thinking back to the whole thing with Šeško, and he always, in his heart, wanted to go to Manchester United and not Newcastle, although Newcastle also came out as the first club to put in a bid, and it was close. So it was the asking price, so to speak, for RB Leipzig. But I think he took a pay cut even, and the advisors or the managers took a lower fee just to make it more flexible to join Manchester United. And I kind of wonder, what would Xavi say at this moment in time?
I'm Xavi, the greatest Dutch lion, a guy who gets things done. Xavi only wants to go to Chelsea. If not this summer, then I will come in the winter. Rasenballsport are lucky to have me, but my talent is not fully utilized and appreciated over here. I am the greatest Dutch lion. Watch this space. Ring ring. Hup Holland hup.
Well, take it with a pinch of salt. So this might be a response of Xavi Simons. Let's see what happens. Let's see if he does end up at Chelsea. We wish him all the best. To be honest, it's the best for both sides. So in that sense, no hard feeling. We're grateful for his contribution, his great performance, especially in the first year. But if you look at the Bayern Munich match, he sent out a clear signal, to be honest. And hopefully he'll be successful in the Premier League. He'll be a great addition to either Spurs or Chelsea, I'm sure. So let's wish him all the best. And we'll move on. But that opens up a new question. So who's going to replace him? Now, internally, I don't think we really have a player that could really replace him, apart from maybe Christoph Baumgartner. So it's quite feasible that a lot of Leipzig supporters are looking at a replacement from outside, and a very top hot name over here is Harvey Elliott, who performed so brilliant in the Euros Under-21 Championship. An English player who is poised to be Xavi's replacement and creates a lot of excitement. But at this moment in time, we're not really sure if he's really going to depart from Liverpool. I think his market value is about 40 million, but don't quote me on that. And according to some of the sources, he seems to be open for moving to a club like RB Leipzig. And I'm not really sure if he really played in the first couple of matches. I know in the first match that Liverpool played, he was on the bench the entire time. So RB Leipzig could be a good place for him to develop within in a team with exciting players, young players around him. However, do bear in mind, we're not playing international competitions. But still, I think the gentleman is very young and he could be a wonderful addition over here. He would be welcomed. And let's see what happens there. But quite frankly, I am glad that Xavi Simons is on the verge of joining either Chelsea FC or Tottenham Hotspurs. And thank you, Xavi, and all the best. That brings us to a player who's been here since 2018. Dudu's contract expires in summer 2026. So far, he's collected 222 caps for RB Leipzig. He joined us in December 2018, and as far as I remember, that was the time when Naby Keita had left us, I think half in the summer before that, for Liverpool FC. And for a long time, we thought he would be a successor and he would be that driving force. And he was for a couple of years. He put in a steady performance, was injured a couple of times as well. And last season was also difficult for him. I think some of times when he came on the pitch, he was very unfortunate, like a lot of other players. But now there's emerged that he's on the verge of joining Paris FC, who just got promoted to the top level French league, Ligue 1. And for a cost about 20 to 25 million euros, which I think is quite staggering. Now, people could really point out that Paris FC is sort of part of the Red Bull Cosmos. I'm not going into that. I just wish he gets a really good time at Paris. He gets the playing time that he needs and that he deserves. And he's getting back to old strength. So Amadou, thank you very much for everything. We do remember the cup ties, the finals as well, the trophies you won with RB Leipzig, all the effort you put in. And we just wish you well. Bonne chance, monsieur. And now, here's the one who's going to just sit it out. And it's quite unbelievable.
Sorry, I'm Timo, the great Timo. I am the winner of the Champions League, Europa League, FIFA Club World Competition, Confed Cup and Ah ja, DFB-Pokal. I am the Rekordtorschütze of RB Leipzig and I will only go to a club where I can earn more money and win titles by sitting on the bench or in the stands. Whatever their preference is. So.
Well, you have to give it to him. Timo Werner won a lot of trophies and titles while not being on the pitch. I now remember when he left RB Leipzig, and at that time we really loved him. We adored him. He was the Fußball god for us, and he is still the gentleman who scored most of the goals for RB Leipzig in our brief history. So when he left for Chelsea, and he did win that Champions League final, he was there in the final. He actually did a decisive run to give Kai Havertz the space to score that decisive goal. Well, we thought, okay, he deserved it. On the other hand, his interview afterwards wasn't great either, because he said, well, that's why I left Leipzig, because I came here to win trophies and titles. As if you can't do this with RB Leipzig. If we had played much better, we would have actually won titles before that. But then afterwards, okay, went to the FIFA World Club, and I'm not really sure if he was included in the squad, but he did come back. He did come back in his second stint at Leipzig. Wasn't so successful. It was pretty much solid, but not as convincing as it was before. And the love that the affection we had for him, that didn't reignite. And kind of felt sorry for him because he was Mr. Johnson Toad. He was actually known that he missed the clearest of chances. I remember when I saw him in front of the opponent's goal, and that was right in front of me. He had a clear shot, but yeah, hit that ball over the bar. Looked at the pitch, and of course it was the pitch's fault, of course. Yeah, that's what I thought. So then he was loaned out to the Spurs, and we all know the end of that story. Some promising, a little bit of a promising start. So I thought, yeah, that would be a comeback, but then he wasn't even included in the squad of Mr. I can't pronounce his name. I'm sorry, too Greek for me. So he has come back this summer. And he's clearly another part of Ole Werner's plans. And apparently it has emerged that there had been offers, and we knew about this, by Red Bull New York. And the problem is that he didn't go for it, was apparently that he's earning shitloads of money over here in Leipzig. 10 million euros per annum to be exact, and who wants to give that up? So the situation that is right now, he rejected those offers from Red Bull New York, from some Premier League clubs, from Italian clubs. I'm not even sure if Saudi Arabia was in that mix as well. And he prefers to be training. I don't know if that's with the team or individually. And prospects of getting back into the national team for Germany are very slim as well. But he prefers to spend his last year, or his last year on the contract, because it expires in the summer 2026, by just sitting it out and then leaving us as a free agent. According to Transfermarkt.de, his market value is 7 million euros. I'm not sure what's that going to be if he never plays any matches. And I don't know if RB Leipzig is going to win any trophies or titles, and he's not going to be included, but he's going to get that added to his trophies as well. And then he can claim on Instagram, he said it there and then, and he will say it again. He always said it. He came to win trophies. Timo Werner, we had so much sympathy for you. We loved you, but I'm sorry, and I may speak for myself. This behavior is quite astonishing. And it just clearly shows, you want to take away that money by just sitting there and not putting in the effort. Well done, mate, but it's not great. And of course, that kind of prevents RB Leipzig maybe from making more moves, adding more players to the team. But there's nothing they can do about it. And in my eyes, it does tarnish his reputation. And I would have loved to see him in New York, because that would have been a great fit with Emil Forsberg. And with Chopo, he's a cool guy, although he played for Bayern before, but I remember his time, I think, at Mainz, so that's maybe better. And it would have been exciting to live in New York, in a different city, in a global city. And as far as I understood, the way he was related, he could have even earned more money. Just put in the effort, that's all. But he preferred to sit there and take the money. So Timo, good riddance to you. Bye-bye. Well, that brings us to another gentleman, and I'm quite surprised and disappointed, and kind of makes me sad that he's actually open for moving away from RB Leipzig and doesn't seem to be happy over here. Yeah, Dutch defender Lucha isn't happy over here. I remember when he started, it was quite hopeful because he looked solid. He looked like he could be a very good addition to our defense, with also a tendency to help support the offensive efforts as well. And I kind of thought he could, support players like Xaver Schlager a little bit, or take the pressure off David Raum a little bit to make things going forward. And it seemed in the first couple of matches that that's what he was trying to do. But for some reason it didn't work out. And especially now, performances were a little bit shaky as well, also in the test matches. So I suspect that Ole Werner doesn't really plan with him, and the club is open for him to leave, which is such a shame, because he joined us from, I think, his club Feyenoord Rotterdam. He was a hero over there. And when he left, there were no bad words that he left about from the fans regarding him, because he left the club to move to RB Leipzig. No, these were words of encouragement, and I thought this was so great, and that just showed what kind of impact he had in his former club. But this did not happen over here, and it kind of reminds me of Broppe, who joined us many moons ago from Ajax Amsterdam as a really young talent. Didn't work out. He eventually returned back to Amsterdam, and that's where he's, I think, still now, and where he's really performing really well. Having said that, I think we had 39 caps for Lucha Gertruda for RB Leipzig. He scored one goal, and that goal was, I think, in the Champions League versus, was it Porto, Benfica, Lisbon? I forgot. It was last year, the only win we had. See, I scraped that thing already. But I was there, I did see it. I can't remember it. It's my age, showing my age. Anyway, seems like Nottingham Forest is interested, and maybe a move to the Premier League and to Nottingham would actually be a good thing. And that's very interesting as well. So if it does make him happy, hey, we just keep our fingers crossed and we wish him all the best. And personally, I feel quite saddened by the fact that it hasn't worked out because I really liked him. So all the best, Lucha. And that brings us to two more players, veteran players who are rumored to not being included into the squad on Saturday versus Heidenheim, or maybe in the season as well.
Folge Nummer 16, Lukas. Und mit der 44, Kevin.
Lukas Klostermann and Kevin Campbell. Been around for a long time. Lukas Klostermann always being a solid defender. He was part of our advent calendar last year. Kevin Campbell, especially in last season, was fighting a lot and really hard, and looked like he was breaking his bones while trying to kind of rescue from the season what he can be rescued, and always put in the effort. And he's also known for holding very long speeches, especially after the cup wins and the celebration here in Leipzig. Now, looking at the age and looking at the roles they would play, it was kind of inevitable that they were urged to move on. And at the moment, they are not part of the team, which is quite unfortunate. But be rest assured that RBL supporters over here and around the world are eternally grateful for the time and the effort and anything you've given to the club and to us over the years. And we wish you the very best for your new adventures. We're finally coming to the end of this quite long section. And I'd just like to mention two more players. One is Mr. Luis Openda, who is our main striker at the moment, alongside with Romelu. And Luis Openda in the first season was wonderful. Second season was good as well. But the many times we observed that the challenge with gravity is a battle that he would lose. And I think a lot of referees do remember that. So every time he goes down, he doesn't get that penalty kick that he wants to get, or even the penalty if it's inside the box. So for this year, I think he needs to step up the plate. On the other hand, if any club comes around with an offer of in excess of 45 million euros, because that's, or 43 million euros, that's the money we paid in summer 2023, or the club paid, I didn't pay anything. I think then it's very likely that he's going to leave the club, which is going to be an interesting situation, because then we're stuck with Romelu. And as another striker, Mel Baumgartner maybe be able to fill that role, but that makes me realize Yusuf Pausen's not there anymore. So we shall see, but for the time being, I think he's still here. Another player which we should watch is Niklas Seiwald. Niklas Seiwald came in with high hopes from Salzburg as a high young talent, and when he plays for Austria, he most of the time is a really good player and puts in a very good performance. For some reason, it has not happened yet that he had his breakout season at RB Leipzig, and even the first test match that we've seen, the performance versus Bayern Munich, don't make me very hopeful that this is going to happen this year. So kind of watch his space to see what happens there, but presumably he's still going to remain in the squad. It was also rumored that Arthur Vermeeren, who just recently joined us last year, I think it was last year, and the buying option, the clause came into effect automatically when he had hit a number of caps with RB Leipzig. That is rumored that he is free to leave as well, which I find quite interesting. I always thought he was that young talent and that talent to be developed, and especially by Ole Werner. But maybe he's one of the candidates who RB Leipzig would like to see leave. And just one last note when it comes to additions. I know we talked about Harvey Elliott. There's another name rumored as a possible additional addition. Well, you know what I mean. And that is Marlon Gomez, a central midfielder who is more on the defensive side but very creative. And apparently that could only happen if RB Leipzig is able to sell more players. But the transfer window is closing soon, so we'll see what's going to happen. And I hope that was a little bit of an informative roundup for you, especially with a bit of background information of how the supporters see it here in Leipzig and how it feels. And hopefully I was able to relay that to you. So thank you for listening. Well, I'm afraid we do have to talk about that dreadful start to the new season. Our encounter with the mighty FCBRBL Munich. I know it was last Friday and today we're in the middle of the week, but there are some key takeaways that we like to look at, and I think as painful as it is, it might help us moving forward. First of all, we would like to thank you, all those away supporters from RB Leipzig who traveled to Munich. It is said there were around 6,500 spectators supporting RB Leipzig, and I hope they all came back home safely and are in a better mood now and recovered from that match. So let's cast our minds back to last Friday. A lot of us were cautiously optimistic, or some were overly optimistic, that we would at least snatch a point from Bayern Munich. And Richard, you were quite optimistic as well. I think you predicted a 2-2 draw. And we can be forgiven for that, because do remember the Red Bull marketing machines behind all of this, and they created a real hype around the team. You know, with new exciting young players which joined the team, and they kept marketing this for a long, long time. So this really deflected from the fact that there were still quite a people left in the squad, and we still have to get rid of quite a lot of players that wouldn't be eligible to play for this season. And there are some positions where we could use some new players and improve the quality of those positions. So, but at the end of the day, we were all happy that the new season would start again. And, well, if there is a new beginning, then you expect quite a bit of change. A lot of people will expect quite a bit of change, something towards something new. And if you look at the lineup of the team, the first 11 players that were put on the pitch, you have to state that, okay, 9 players were there already last season, the season before. So that's maybe pointing to the old part of the team, and only 2 youngsters, 2 new exciting players were playing on the wings in the attack. That was the only new addition that we had. So I must say, when I looked at that lineup, I thought, okay, this doesn't feel like the new change and the new beginning that the club almost promoted. And it kind of goes back to what we heard before, that Ole Werner will create a core team. And if that core team consists of the players who are already there, who's got the routine and the experience, then he will go back to those. So pretty much that's what it looked like. And so the team started. We all know what happened. There was a 6-0 loss. And I must also state that the subs that he put in didn't have that kind of effect in my eyes that they had in the first round of the Pokal. But one thing that really strikes me is our player Xavi Simons, number 10. He has stated so many times in such clear ways that he does not want to stay with RB Leipzig in the new season, that he wants to join Chelsea FC, and that's the only club he wants to join. And if he is not a part of the new system, the new season, the new beginning, why the heck do you put him on the pitch? That was really clear. Yes, you can argue he is a very good player and he can make the difference, but if the attitude's not right, then I beg to differ. When I watched him during the match, I got really angry and really upset. And after 45 minutes, I hoped he would be taken off the pitch. But of course, he wasn't. He played all the way through. Because when you looked at him the way he was running around, it was more the circles of a referee. And he didn't really get involved in so many things, according to my view. And try to stay out of action, just some alibi runs once in a while, but he didn't want to get injured or hurt himself. Didn't really help the team because, it felt like, to me, it felt as if we were one man down. Now, other people had different opinions, saw him playing a little bit better, a bit more with the right attitude. Could be the case, and on social media, some people pointed out some scenes where you could see that he was really trying and maybe didn't connect with other players who didn't understand his genius way of playing soccer. But the way I looked at it, he was complaining a lot, and that could be that reason, because he couldn't connect with other players because they didn't understand what he was actually doing, and his geniuses around him just like him, I suppose. But on what I also observed was that his attitude was just not right, and compared with the last match at home versus Bayern Munich, when he was really fighting and he was really providing energy to players when we were 3-2 down. And that last assist that he scrambled through to make that assist to Yusuf Poulsen, who then chipped that ball in to score the equalizer in the last minute. That is the kind of attitude that I want to see, the fighting spirit. I'm sorry, this time I did not see that. And to be honest, if we're looking ahead at the Heidenheim match, and Richard, you will talk about this a little bit later, I would love to see him not to be on that pitch. But I know, Richard, you also think that if we don't manage to sell him to Chelsea, if he's not leaving, because Chelsea is not going to make an offer and they can't offload enough players to actually take him on board, and we're stuck with him for at least until the winter time, then you probably think that it's a good thing that he's here because of his sheer quality. But I would like to argue, if he doesn't provide he's not there with the right attitude, it's not going to help us, and it's not going to be helpful. Another player who started to really disappointed me in this match was Golpenta. What is happening, Golpenta? I mean, two things I observed there. The fight against gravity, he keeps losing that, but he always enters that conflict. But that war zone, but he keeps losing. And I don't know why he doesn't change his tack there a little bit. Also, when he does go down, he doesn't get the penalty or the free kick that he wants to get from the referee, because I think he's just probably faking it, or he's done it too often. But on the other hand, something similar that we observed last season happened. He was on his own there as an attacker. So sometimes he would have to go halfway across the field. Felt like it to get the ball. Once he got the ball, he's got 3-4 opponents around him and he couldn't do much. And of course, gravity won again. So I'm not really sure what's happening here and how he can improve and how he's going to get back to that Golpenta that we had the season before last, because that was just tremendous. I just hope he will be able to recover. Now, we conceded 6 goals, so you could really argue that our defense is really bad. It's just really not good at all. But there's one thing that we observed is, okay, it was sometimes a bit shaky in the back, but a lot of mistakes, decisive mistakes happened in midfield, and long time before our our defensive players could even get involved, have the chance to get involved. And there were quite a few occasions when our defense did not have any chance to get involved or to block anything, because there was sheer too much pressure coming out of midfield, because Bayern Munich could do whatever they wanted to do. And at one point, we even counted the consecutive passes that the Bayern players did. And there were about 31 passes that were unanswered, where they could pass the ball around undisturbed at this match. And to be honest, that's quite a lot, It felt to me at times as if our players thought this is still a club friendly versus Bayern Munich. If you lose 6-0, then you lose 6-0. It doesn't matter. It's not that bad. And Bayern Munich was on fire. They were fired up, especially Joshua Kimmich. I know he seems to be over competitive when he's on the pitch, but remember that scene when Nusa scored 1 goal, which was disallowed because of the famous Lukeba free kick, which was not done in the right way? Well, Joshua Kimmich was really fired up and he was complaining, was running to the referee, but at the time they were up by 4 goals. So you could argue, well, why don't you let that slide? Calm down, you don't get a heart attack over it. But that 1 goal could be decisive at the end of the championship. Yeah, you never know. It might cost them dearly. But that's Joshua Kimmich. And I would have loved to see our team to have more fighting spirit. It did feel to me as if they were falling apart in the second half, or even after the second goal. And that's a shame, because the first 23 minutes weren't so bad. There's something that we can build on, but just not enough and not solid enough. Well, and if you look at our bench, there is Ole Werner at the sideline, the coaching zone, and he is calm and collective. Now, I must admit that's a change to the last few coaches we had with Marco Rose, who was very emotional and animated. Also, Julian Nagelsmann. I sometimes think in games like this, where the team is low, the energy is low, and sometimes needs an input from the sidelines. And if that's a coach who's animated, who jumps up and down and yells, well, maybe some players will catch fire. And at least we're showing some fighting spirit and we're going down in flames and not just like we did on Friday. So it's fair to say that we did have a crash landing at the beginning of the season. And the positive thing could be, well, it's Bayern Munich. And Bayern Munich is probably the best team of the league. It's not going to get any worse than that. And it all happened on match day 1. So a lot of time to rectify that. The only issue I've got with this is, well, this could potentially make you not see the real problems that are there and maybe to avoid really attacking those. So it's going to be interesting to see how the coaching staff has reacted, what kind of face or attitude the team is going to show when they play Heidenheim, and what the lineup's going to look like. So Saturday is going to be very decisive for that, but that's just one match. They have to look at the long run and see how we progress there. I mean, chances are very good to this year that things could get more into unity, and there is not so much extra loads of extra matches because we don't play internationally. So there's a good chance that a team is forming, and maybe by match day 6, 7, or 8, we're going to see quite a good oiled machine. You never know. I keep my fingers crossed. I just hope that. At the moment, I must say, I'm not so hopeful because I haven't seen the things that are going to make me believe that we're going to come out in the near future with a very successful team. But hopefully, I'm going to be proven wrong. So that's our quick review, our quick look back at our crash landing in Munich.
Introducing our next opponent, their Gegnercheck.
Aren't you excited?
Oh, yeah, extremely excited. I mean, it's always a pleasure playing against the lads from the Ostalb, from Heidenheim. But, if one of you out there would like to, make a slightly donation or somehow a subscription whatsoever to our little podcast, I deserved it because, I rewatched the whole 90 minutes of the Bundesliga match, Heidenheim versus Wolfsburg, and it was dreadful as hell.
I'm sorry, was it more painful than watching RB Leipzig playing at Munich?
Oh yeah.
Oh, really?
It was definitely because
okay.
yes, yeah. If you are into RB Leipzig, it was disappointing, of course, but still entertaining. And the match Heidenheim versus Wolfsburg was nothing at all.
Okay.
So, in the second half, Heidenheim took about 30 minutes until they managed to get the first time into the opponent's box, and it was not like it was a chance. It was a crosser that was just headed away outside the box immediately, but it still counts. Just to try to show you how boring and dreadful and ugly that match was. And there was two really poor sides, and Wolfsburg wasn't good as well. And that, it was quite incredible for me that there was no 2 or 3 goals for Wolfsburg because of horrible mistakes from the Heidenheim defensive players. I think the first came from Schöppner and the other one from Siersleben. They tried to play passes back to the goalie, the Ramay, but it was way too short, and it was twice Wimmer from Wolfsburg who had just sprinted into the path and managed to get to the ball first. And in the first scene, Ramay took the foul, and he was lucky to stay on the pitch. He was only rewarded with a yellow card because Wimmer was not able to, shoot the ball or pass the ball or somehow bring the ball towards the goal line, but towards the sideline. And so the ref decided that it was not a preventing a clear goal chance and a clear chance to score. So that was, I think, the judgment for Ramay to stay on the pitch. And the other scene I'm referring to, I think it was Siersleben that time. Way too short pass. Wimmer got into first, and then he was one-on-one versus the goalie, and there was, like in Germany we say, 100%ige chance. It's something he has to score there, of course, no doubt about it. And Ramay, was lucky in that scene. Okay, he was quick outside away from the goal line, but still got lucky. So, I mean, overall, there was so much space in midfield. From both sides, it was not like it was a real issue to get the ball from their own half into the opponent's half. Now it was like, okay, we have our back three or back four, so Heidenheim at the back three, Wolfsburg at back four, and they were staying deep inside their own halves. And and attacking players were taking deep into the other opponent's half, and with that being said, there was over and over again huge spaces in midfield, and once one team was able to recover the ball, it was just like a walk in the park through midfield, and then first problems were faced like 35 meters from the opponent's goal line. One player I'd like to mention here who was way better than any other Heidenheim player was their number 8, Leo Cienza, who has had a quite interesting career up to now, because he came from the third leagues. So Magdeburg was still the third league when he was playing there. And then he went from Magdeburg to Ulm, and I think Ulm was the third league as well.
Yeah.
Before he transferred to Heidenheim. And it seemed to me that with every step he took, with every task he faced, or every challenge, he accepted it, and he somehow managed to get used to it, to improve himself. And now I think it's fair to say it's a quite solid Bundesliga midfielder.
Is he going to cause any danger to RB Leipzig on Saturday?
I think yes, we have to keep an eye on him definitely, because he's the one that's able to handle the ball well and get past 2 or 3 from our lads. And on the other hand side, it's also a player who is who has an eye for the next man open, who can create something to create chances with the direct passes with his teammates, and definitely don't let him too much space with the ball. It will get dangerous, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, and some other players, there. What's one player's I think is interesting, because I see some upside in his style. Is the number 22. It's Ibrahimovic, who has got nothing in common with this famous
Zlatan.
With his famous Zlatan, of course.
Offside.
So that particular Ibrahimovic that is playing for Heidenheim is on loan from Bayern, and his goal is gathering game time.
Okay.
And I think Heidenheim is a good landing spot for him to complete that goal. And he showed some, he was busy getting back into his own territory to make himself an viable option for getting the ball passed to, and then somehow trying to create something. And he had some dangerous crosses. Not really struggling. The Wolfsburg defenders not really struggling in defending, because they are still outnumbered, as I tried to explain, their opponent's attacking unit in their own penalty box. But the crosses Ibrahimovic were able to get into the penalty box was quite okay. And one last player who caught my eye a little bit was Manon Busch. It's somehow, it's 182 centimeters pure muscle. I just like to see him play.
Okay.
I just like to see. Yeah, he reminds me somehow of a player from Scotland or Wales. So I'm like, okay, I'm heavy metal football, and I don't care about what's be tomorrow. Only here, only now. and and he is definitely marching the whole 90 minutes on the right sideline, up and down, and I think we have to keep an eye on him as well, because he is quick. So we have to prevent providing too much open space. So that could be dangerous.
What do you think if you compare this to our opener versus Bayern Munich? What kind of team are we facing here? What style of play are we going to be presented with?
I think a lot more intensity defensive wise. So because obviously the lads from Bayern Munich, it was just not necessary for them to be involved in a lot of defensive tackles. I think it will be the other way around here. So huge and many more defensive actions for the Heidenheim players with much more intensity. I think when it comes to quickness, and when it comes to some ball handling and some trickness, some handling the ball with some just being like tricky as hell, and then getting away from your opponent. I think our lads are in advantage here. So I guess and I assume there will be lots of slight minor fouls, especially in midfield, and I think it will be a tactic from coach Frank Schmidt to find our lads into some rhythm. So always disturbing them.
Oh shit!
Do not let cohesion grow.
Well, just keep interrupting them with niggling fouls here and there, and just interrupt the flow, not getting RB Leipzig into their own rhythm. Okay, something not really great to look forward to. But to be honest, I keep wondering, the last encounter at Leipzig, the 2-2 draw is still kind of fresh in our mind. And I think we were 2-0 down and we're just chasing them for the whole 90 minutes, but never really felt as if we could completely turn around completely. Hence, we only got the draw. And if you compare this Saturday's match to the last home encounter versus Heidenheim, do you think it's going to be similar? Give us some hope.
Hopefully not. There was a freak game, the last 2-2 draw you mentioned, because everything went against us. There was this very first chance that went in. It was like a, Steffen Freund would say, Sunday shot. And then just a few minutes later, it was a penalty that was rewarded to Heidenheim. And, I think it was 30 to 40 minutes into the game, and we were down 2-0. And then they're starting Heidenheim to start snickering. So like, hey, come on. And that was what we wanted. So now we can park the bus and just watch you play, because, that's what you're struggling with if you have to create something. I think this time, I don't think it will be the other way around, but I don't expect him to park the bus.
Okay.
So this is not what Frank Schmidt intends to do. So he wants to play. And so I think there will be much more open spaces, and we have to avoid falling down behind so early. It must be the other way around, like scoring quick one and then goal, and then ideally the next one to get up 2-0 in the first 45 minutes, and then it should be a walk in the park.
To be honest, I'm really interested now. Is Ole Werner going to change the lineup completely?
Liebe Fußballfans, wir kommen jetzt zu unserer heutigen Mannschaftsaufstellung.
If any, there will only be slightly minor changes in the starting lineup, because Gulácsi is obviously the number one, no doubt about it, and I think he was not responsible at all for any of that 6 goals he conceded in the home and the away opener on Friday night. I think Raum is indisputable, Orban Lukeba as well. And on the right defender position, I think it would be okay or cool if we could see Nedeljkovic from the very beginning, because I think that Baku was bad. He wasn't at all. I think he did a good job defensively versus Diaz. But, defending 1-on-1 against a dribbler is not what you're looking for in a match versus Heidenheim. You need quickness. You need quickness 24/7, and I think Nedeljkovic is a little bit quicker than Baku is, and that's why I think it would be a good idea get him in onto the pitch in the first 45 minutes from the beginning. Seibert has to go out. It's just so obvious because come on, I don't want to talk about him. So bring Bansuzi in defensive midfield alongside Xavi and Schlager, and in our attacking unit, I think Nusa is way better than Diomande yet.
Okay.
I think Diomande still got huge upside, but he was all over the place versus Ban. And as soon as Nusa came on, there was so much more strength and power in our left side. So I think he will get his job in the starting unit. And on the right attacking side, I think we will see Bakayoko. And as our striker number one, it's still Openda. Romelu, well, I talked about him, and I don't think that he has a bright future here in Leipzig. But if I'm wrong, he has to improve huge, and in a very short time. So I don't think that we will see him from the beginning. But Luis Openda.
Okay. And what's your prediction in terms of score?
Well, it's not going to be a football celebration day, but in the end, we're going to take away the win with 3-0.
Life is not a ponyhof. Yeah, I think it's going to be 3-1. It's going to be tedious. It's going to be hard, and we need to be patient. So hopefully our fans are patient and still support the team on our home opener. Just got one more question. It seems to me that we're kind of struggling to, I almost said offload, but let Xavi go. And Xavi obviously doesn't want to be part of the RB Leipzig squad. Now, here's a disclaimer. By the time you listen to this, things might have changed because we're getting to the last few days of the transfer period. And when I talked to you previously, you said, well, if Xavi stays, that's actually a good thing for the team. I am a little bit skeptic because he's a high-quality player, but his attitude doesn't seem to be in the right place. And his heart's not in the right place either. However, he could behave very professionally. What has to happen so he likes us again and he just puts in all of the effort and the attitude that we've seen in, last year and the year before last?
Well, it seems to me that he's not the guy that makes the lads around him look better.
Okay.
But I think he needs more talent around him to shine. Mm-hmm. What I'm trying to say is when he was playing with Olmo, we saw a whole other Xavi because he had much more talent to his left and to his right side. And now this talent obviously decreased. So I think it's fair to say that Nusa is maybe on a way to be a good player, but he's not as good as Olmo was when he was with us, and nor is he as good as Soboslai was.
Okay. And,
I think it's the same with Baumgartner or Seibald or Openda. And with that being said, that's what leads me to this impression, to that conclusion that obviously Xavi is someone who needs more talent to play better. And so
different set of players around him.
If that's the case, so players need to improve, or we need to go into the transfer market again and see what we can provide them.
So the likes of Elliot, would that be an option, or?
Yeah, Elliot and Xavi, that would be cool.
What about Kunku and Xavi? Would that work, or is that stupid?
I'm not convinced yet. So because last time we signed a player from a Premier League bench, it's still expensive.
It's still expensive, and he's gonna ride it out, Timo. Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Richard. This concludes another episode of Bulls and Red, our RB Leipzig podcast from Leipzig. To everyone who's listening to us, and we're really grateful for everyone who's tuning in. If you like this podcast, consider subscribing to it. That'd be really great. We're going to be back next week. You guys have a great weekend, and keep your fingers crossed for the first 3 points of this season, and we're going to lift ourselves. Surely we're going to lift ourselves away from the end of the table to somewhere in the graue midfield into no man's land. That would be awesome. Thank you, Richard. And I'd like to conclude with Auf geht's, Leipziger Jungs.